maybe now it's time to talk about the business models.
Absolutely. And before we go deep into business model, talk a little bit. We covered a lot. We covered the luminaries. Where are you spending your own time? Obviously, we work together at Arago. I have a sense from that. Not sure the broader audience has. Can you just almost elaborate a little bit? Where you focusing on? Is it also trying to learn the lessons? Is it something new? Can you just expound where you're putting your time to?
So I must say I don't sleep much. Yeah? You know that. You know that. So and this is a fantastic advantage, right? If you only sleep like 4 hours, okay, it might not be super healthy, but I've never had the problems with it. Right? It means that I get 8 hours of more time a day to read papers. And if you really want to get ahead of AI technically, and also what it means strategically, you have to have the knowledge beyond it. And you cannot get a summary from ChatGPT. That doesn't work. It's like, okay, I'm so long out of school, so I can say now, while in school, I never read any novel or any book that was supposed to be read in German or English. I always went to the dictionary and got the summary. And that worked perfectly for school. With the invention, I don't see very well, so reading for me is very hard. With the invention of audiobooks, I started reading all these novels or listening to all these novels. And the content was just fantastic and so much deeper than
such a different
the summary.
World to the world of AI.
And no, it isn't.
Why not?
That's exactly it, right? You need the content. You need to go into the basics. You need to understand the physics behind it, the math behind it, and so on, if you really want to work in AI. And I think the same is true for business, right? If you really want to apply AI to a business, you will have to understand how an organization works. You will have to understand how to mitigate the immune system. This whole thing of pantare, right? Everything is in flux. That's bullshit, right? We're trying to create a very stable system. The system creates an immune system to defend itself and so on. And this all works until the system collapses. And the great business people are the ones who say, like, this system is about to collapse. I'm going to destroy it myself and move on to the next stable state. So what we actually have is stable state, flux, stable state, flux, stable state, flux. This is the only way to constantly live in a stable world. And the same thing that is true for business is true for geopolitics, right? And society. Like currently, we're leaving the stable states of everything because what's the new system? We don't have a goal system, right? And that's a problem. There needs to be a goal. What's our goal?
But coming back to all these new inputs, all these, much more broader, where you're putting your own time, some of your own company, not your own company, the company you work for. Can you talk about the focus? How would you describe, probably more to a broader audience?
So I say, first of all, I read a lot of stuff. And that is a lot of science stuff and a lot of literature. Because I believe that art is the early warning system of society. Like artists have seen
hope for
everything coming.
People who study humanities like myself. So,
well, you say you're a failed historian. You're not failed at all. Like history is the most neglected data source that we have, right? Is because we discard history so much. It also means we discard knowledge, and that is something that I don't understand. It's like, how do we acquire knowledge? Okay, this is what I do when I read all the papers and so on. How can we be happy just by understanding something? Why do I have to be happy if 10 people like my Instagram post? Why can't I be happy if I, in my own brain, in my own spirit, understand something that I did not understand before? Maybe it is something hundreds of people have understood before. And sometimes I have this with math, right? So I spend hours looking at the Dirac equation and fiddling around with it and so on. And even though this is so old, I still understand new things about it. It's fantastic. And it actually makes you happy. So getting solid input, long input, understanding the complexity or trying to work with the complexity of science and literature and art and so on, this is all very important. The second thing where I spend my time now, I used to spend it all with algorithms. Okay, counter force towards just sitting in front of algorithms and proofs and all that used to be music and horse riding. Now, I I see that algorithms actually have a very long lifetime. We all think that computer science is very short, but these algorithms that we use today, like transformers and LLMs, they're like 90s algorithms, right? This is 30 years later. Deep learning, which we still use for everything machine learning, is 74, right? So this is also why I named these very few people who set the foundations of artificial intelligence. I think that algorithmic thinking, it's very satisfying. For me, it's very satisfying because it's complex, it's math, right? It makes me happy. But the real impact now is on change management in business. And if I have to break this down to even further, is the most neglected thing in business is data and bringing together complexity and causality. Like, since we can't compute causality, we need to store it with data, which brings us to the foundation of all of this is semantic data platforms. All the technologists know, right? All the platforms out there use a semantic graph to manage their data. The biggest, fattest startup ever, like Palantir, is based on a semantic data graph. Awesome, right? Awesome technology. Maybe wrong owner, but awesome technology. Getting that data right is a precondition for harvesting everything else, right? So this is a lot where our focus technically is making these well-known semantic data platform storage kind of things more accessible to everyday business. And the second thing is just organizational change management. Like, how can we get people on board with big changes that are coming?
So listening to you know a bit about your current endeavors. Would you compare yourself to someone like Palantir, some of a similar approach?
Well, it might sound arrogant, right, if we say like we're this small Stuttgart company and we are the European Palantir, but we are. Like, the technologies of these two companies is very, very similar, and all of these type of companies, there's probably a few more. I only know these two. They have done what no one is allowed to do. They've put 20 years into building it, right? You're not catchable. Like, it needs 20 years to actually build these types of technologies. Same with DeepMind, right? If you look at it, 20 years. Same with what Jan is doing. Same with transformers, and same with OpenAI. We all think this is coming out of thin air, but it isn't. So I think we're comparable to Palantir in this case. But these companies, we have taken very different approaches, right? So everything is based on data. Everything is based on semantic data. Palantir and Almato. Then what do you do with data? You try and reuse it. Like, if you look at how many gazillions of dollars have been spent on trying to reuse data with master data models, data warehouses, data lakes, and there's billion-dollar companies like Snowflake or Databricks and so on that have come out of this, right? But it still doesn't work. It doesn't work because it doesn't have semantics. So both Palantir and Almato add the semantics, and the primary thing is reuse. But reuse is something that is not in the typical business system today, right? You're trying to make a single island of something work, like a proof of concept, a minimal viable product, and so on. You're not trying to collect the data in project number 1 and then have the budget for project number 2 only be 50% of one. And this is due to how things are organized. The project leader of project 1 and project 2 are independent. Both have to make their budget meet. It's not of interest to project 1 to contribute to project 2, right, in a normal corporate setting. And this is what we have to change. It's the opposite of what's happening in society. We have to, like, instead of drifting further apart in companies, we have to come together. We've actually to work on common goals, which we supposedly do because our common goal is to increase our market value and increase our profits, right? But if you look at everyday company workings, people are controlled by making themselves work and not acting for the other guy. And this is the people who act for the other guy, they actually make this work. And this is why you see Palantir work so well in the military, because there you actually have this community still active in the military. And they work for the other guy. Like, if this team collects data, makes an experience, and it means people in the other team don't die, that's a good outcome. Right? And it's very plastical in the military. in corporate, right, is theoretically, if the military guys were competitive, like team 1 was competitive to team 2, they said like, awesome, if I don't publish this, team 2 will die. Like, how cynical would that be?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So, but that's what we do in corporates. Yeah. Team 1 doesn't contribute to team 2 so that team 2 fails, because there's only budget for one team, and then team 1 wins. What we actually need to focus on, second step, is reuse of data means that project 1 is still the same effort as it always was, because you had to understand the data, and actually with semantic data pools you really have to make the step of understanding the data and putting that understanding with the data. That's an effort, right? You have to make anyway. If you build software, you have to understand the data, but now you have to put it down with the data so that anyone else can use the data after that. But project 2 will profit because it can skip the data preparation, data massage, data understanding phase completely. And this is how you speed up this development dramatically. So now this is where the companies are still the same, Palantir and Almato. Now we go from, the second thing is, if you have these data pools, you want to gain insights from these data pools. And this is where Palantir is super strong. Palantir has built all this workbenches and so on. And they have built great tools to allow an analyst or a programmer or now maybe even a business person to gain insights from the data that is there.